have to hear the repeats. All right.
No, don't worry
Okay,
about
well,
it.
should we laugh at the appropriate time?
No.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm rolling.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to have you do is say your name and the name of the movie that you're here with tonight.
My name is Richard Fleischer, and the movie tonight is called Arena.
Now, is this the only 3D movie you directed?
No, I've directed 2 3D movies. I guess together would make 5, wouldn't it? But I've done 2. I did this one and another one called the Amityville 3D for the De Laurentiis Company.
So when most of these pictures we've learned this weekend, the scripts were around the studio, usually the directors signed on not knowing it was a 3D movie. Did that happen to you, or did you know up front it was going to be 3D?
Oh no, I knew up front. I don't know how you would not know you were making a 3D movie. You got to be blind. But certainly the reason I made the picture, one of the reasons I made the picture is because it was going to be in 3D, and at that time 3D was very, very popular.
What are you doing in there? Did you see, how was that?
You all
I
right?
heard them, but
Okay. So are there
So,
any...
anyhow,
okay, go ahead.
I did. I made 2 3D movies, 30 years apart, and I knew right from the start, of course, that I was making a 3D movie. I don't know how you could do otherwise with 2 cameras shooting it simultaneously. Well, anyhow.
Well, not at that point. People were saying that they would get a film and then the studio would tell them, oh, by the way, we want to do this as a 3D. Not that they started production and didn't know, of course.
I don't believe that for 1 minute.
Well, maybe they just are saying that. I don't know.
That's just a
Was it
plain
Hubert
lie
Sprock said
somebody
that,
told
I
you.
think, about-
That's ridiculous.
God. So it wasn't a bait and switch. Okay, so now we've clarified that. Okay.
Probably Hitchcock that told you that now that
So, were you excited about the opportunity to work in this new medium, and what were your thoughts, if you remember, about what creatively you could do with it?
Well, I didn't have any thoughts about what I could creatively do about it at the time because I didn't know really how it was made. I wasn't that conversant with the whole manner of making 3D movies. So I didn't come in with any preconceptions, but I knew I was going to make 3D, and when I finally signed the contracts and all and went to MGM, they gave me a short course in the yes and no's of making 3D movies, of how to do them, how to get the best way of certain effects that you want.
Can you talk a little bit about the cinematographers you worked with on your 3D movies?
Well, there was just the one cinematographer, as far as I know, and whose name I cannot remember at the moment, but he was the cameraman, and it was a very, very difficult job. I think he did a great job.
Do you have any interesting stories about Arena, anything that happened on the set that makes a good anecdote?
I've written a book about it.
I've heard.
Yes, there are interesting and I think very funny stories about what happened in the making of the picture.
And was there a premiere for this movie, and where was it?
I don't remember there being any premiere. As a matter of fact, the picture, as far as I know, played in 3D in only one theater in New York City, at the, I believe, the Criterion Theater. And it was, after that it played flat, or 2D, whatever you want to call it. But there was apparently too many problems. So it's a whole different story of what happened to 3D. But there's been a revival. I was in on the second revival, and now there's a third revival.
So between, you said there was a 30-year period between when you did Arena and when you made the other 3D film. What had changed technologically in that 30 years?
Technologically, there had been quite a big change because you didn't have to use two cameras simultaneously. Two cameras that were separated, the lenses separated by the width of the average person's eyes, the span of one eye to the other. And you needed two cameras shooting the two slightly different angles. And those had to be projected simultaneously, so that you need two eyes to see 3D and two separate visions for each one. So the melding of the two parts is put together in your brain. And maybe that's what's been wrong with me ever since I made the picture. But anyhow, the new system just requires, or it did 30 years later, it requires one camera, and instead of two strips of film from two cameras, you have one strip, one 35 millimeter strip that is split in half. And it's a very complex mechanism that makes it do that. But with mirrors, you can get the slightly different change in what you're photographing to give you the 3D image in your head. Something like that.
So when you get a script for a 3D movie, what was your process of going through it and deciding where you wanted to, say, do effects where people would really see the potential of 3D? How did you block that out? Do you remember?
Well, yes, certainly. The main thing that everybody wants, all the producers want that you're working with, they all want something to come off the screen into the audience and be in air in front of you. And there aren't too many ways to get that. And it's very, very tricky and very difficult. But that's what you keep in mind. Is, you try to aim everything right at the lens of the camera, which sort of limits you. I didn't pay much attention to that because I thought what I was doing dramatically was more important. But wherever the opportunity presented itself, I tried to use it as best as I was able to do. One of the main problems with the system, with 3D in general, 3D photography in general, is that the image that you have on the screen that you want to come out of the screen into the audience can only do that if the edge of the object you're shooting does not touch the edge of the frame of the film visually. Because when that happens, the image jumps back into the picture. So you obviously have to photograph something that can be contained inside the frame of the picture so that it does not touch any of the edges. And that's what gives you big headaches trying to figure out how to do that. And I didn't realize it, of course, thinking that doing a picture about a rodeo with bulls jumping into the audience and cowboys riding their horses into the audience, I found out you can't do that. But did the best I could. Unless you were going to photograph a little tiny bull that came through the frame of the film, but it was very tricky. I did the best I could with it in both instances of both pictures.
Joe, did you, were there any, you've made some wonderful fantasy films and films that could have lent themselves to 3D. Did you ever wish that, like, for example, you'd made 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in 3D? Or?
I'd love to have done that. There are a lot of things I would love to do in 3D. The only one who could really afford to do that was Walt Disney. And I went down to Epcot in Florida to see their exhibition of 3D, which was fantastic. Just knocked your socks off when you looked at it. I've never seen anything. That's real movie magic. But they spent millions and millions of dollars shooting that one short sequence. And we weren't able to do that. But when you have the right subject and the right technical ability to do it, yes, 3D is wonderful, but isn't quite ready for that.
So is there anything else about that era of 3D filmmaking that you'd like to share with us, just from a perspective of working at the studio, or how it was at that time to get a 3D picture? Did you have to be like a special director to get one? Did they choose certain people because of previous work you'd done? Or?
No, I don't know. I think they just picked the best director they could find that wanted to make a 3D movie. At that time, 3D movies were very, very successful. And it's happened twice to me. 3D movies really work as a fad, and audiences flock to see the picture when they first come out, and then it's like somebody turned off a light switch. Nobody wants to see it anymore. They don't want to put the glasses on. They don't want to do whatever is necessary to do to see a 3D movie, like have two eyes. They really kind of just get turned off, and that's the end of the run. Then the film is shown flat in 2 dimensions. But surely there's if they could ever whip some of the problems, I don't know what the newest things look like, but you do have to wear glasses.
Yeah, you still do. They haven't come up with a non-glasses, although apparently that's the holy grail of 3D, is to find a way to do it without the glasses. So.
The funniest thing that ever happened, I think, in making 3D movies was that after the first 3D movie, it's Born a Devil. Is that it? Mm-hmm. They wanted to make House of Wax. And Born a Devil was a huge success. So therefore, the next picture would be a huge success too. Anyhow, they went through a lot of the directors, and they came down to 2 directors that they wanted to do the House of Wax. One was Andre de Toth, and the other one was I've forgotten his name for the moment, but he directed the first picture. The interesting part was they were both one-eyed directors. Now, they have never seen 3D. Even together, they wouldn't see 3D. And these 2 one-eyed directors are going to direct a 3D movie. You cannot see 3D with one eye. Well, what happened was they made, I think it was Andre de Toth, got the job, made the picture. It was an enormous success, and he only had one eye, and so how do you know? I mean, there you are. What's the lesson here for everybody? It worked. And he never saw the picture in 3D.
Do you personally enjoy the 3D effect? Had you seen 3D movies before directing one and enjoyed them just as a human being as opposed to a filmmaker?
Well, you know, my father was a great innovator, Max Fleischer, and a great inventor and innovator, animator, everything. And when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my father was making 3D movies with the glasses, and they would run, they were short films, they would run at the Criterion Theater in New York City as prelude to the film that was coming on. And I used to go to see those films with my father. So I've been into this field for quite a long time. That's close to 80 years ago. So yeah, I've always been interested in 3D, right from the time my father made those early films.
Okay. Well, I think we better let you go because we're about to
Okay.
start the movie. So thank